What is going on YouTube? Today we are going for the Star Wars Fallen Order Platinum Trophy. With Star Wars Outlaws dropping next week, I have challenged myself to platinum both Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor before its release. I wanted to quickly say thank you to a handful of you guys. The first big shout out goes to Rene Rivera for being the first to comment and like all of my videos. Sorry if I butchered your name there. Also, thank you to these legends who have commented some good game suggestions, and I will add them to a wheel for a future video. Now, going back to the platinum experience for Star Wars Fallen Order, the first game has 39 trophies to achieve the platinum and takes around 30 hours to complete, with most of that time being spent on collectibles. I am just going to quickly say as well, the map system and tracking in this game is the worst part about it. Anyway, the good news is we only need to play it through once, and it has a 3 out of 10 for difficulty due to not having any difficulty based trophies. We still chose to complete our journey on Jedi Master though, just to add any salt to the wounds that may be upcoming. If you enjoy these videos, please do leave a like and comment below any suggestions for any games you want to see. We are aiming to get 100 platinum trophies, so if you want to follow that journey then please do subscribe as well. With all that being said, let's jump into Cal's journey as this ginger menace runs circles round the Empire. The game starts off on Braca, where we get introduced to Cal and his best bud, who are scrappers. We then pick up a random recovery job and get some tutorials where we parkour around this ruined ship. The job of course goes wrong pretty fast, as not only do we nearly die during the recovery process, we also had to use our Jedi powers to save our friend, and that leads an Inquisitor to come over and have a chat. She is the big bad of the game, and what a baddie she is. That chat ends with our best bud being sent back to the main menu, and then Lizzo throws us off a cliff. We fortunately landed on a passing by train due to plot armor, and we immediately get up and are introduced to some combat. It did not take long for them to figure out that we survived, and they attacked this train with full force. At some point during this, there was some people in a random ship that were offering to help us escape. We tried our best to stay on board, but after a minor inconvenience we are launched off the side, and after failing the jump aboard this friendly ship, we then had a very long fall into this battle arena below where we got to 1v1 the Inquisitor. The start of the fight went quite well, but it did not take us long to start getting clapped. Fortunately, those guys in the ship came down to save the day and we were just able to hop aboard. This did anger the Inquisitor, so she jumped on our windshield and this awful looking alien had to swing the ship around and yeet her off. After all that carnage, we get our first trophy of the journey once we were woken up by that alien. With that, we are then introduced to the team as we head to the next planet together. We have Grease, who is our 4-armed pilot, and then we also have Seer, or Froggy as I call her due to her weird character design on the eyes. She used to be a Jedi and was tracking Cal down to try and get help recovering a holocron. For those non-Star Wars nerds, it is basically a Jedi Rubik's Cube that holds a lot of information. Then, immediately on our first planet, we meet this droid called BD-1 and he is a legend. With the team all banded together, we then get to explore in Bogano. Apart from getting eaten by these big frog things a couple of times, we did manage to get a trophy for customizing our lightsaber. We then stumbled across an old Jedi temple where we get a Discord call from a very dead Jedi. We also find out that this quest for the holocron was BD's purpose given to him by said deceased Jedi. He then gave us some coordinates to another planet and we have to head back to the ship. On the way back we did get messed up a couple of times by this frog. We were able to beat him in the end and then we head back to the ship. The next planet is called Zepho, and I think it's the largest one in the game, but we were told that there was another Jedi temple hidden on this planet. We then make our way through some towns and ruins, which of course had a fair bit of parkour and combat. However, we did end up making it to this set of ruins which also conveniently were hiding the Jedi temple mentioned by the Discord dude. Cal and BD then head into the temple where we not only learn the force push move, but we do also get another message from the holocron dude who explains a bit more of the story, but the main thing he tells us is to head to Kashyyyk. Getting out the temple though was nowhere near as fun as getting in.
That's what she said!
Mainly because we had to solve a bunch of puzzles with these balls, and unlike your mother, I'm not very good with balls and getting them in holes. After literally losing brain cells, we did get out of the temple and was rewarded with another trophy for doing so. We then explored the bits that we could for upgrades and headed back to the ship to have a chat with Froggy. We then make our way over to Kashyyyk, however the place has become a war zone as the Empire is currently doing a full-blown attack. So instead of landing with the crew, we yeet ourselves out the side of the ship and head for one of the walkers. After climbing aboard and clearing out some of the guards, we were then able to take it for a spin. This bit was an absolute blast, no pun intended. Then this random dude called Sol hops on board and introduces himself as leader of the rebels before we crash the walker into his base. With that epic entrance complete, we then had to introduce ourselves and the crew. After being jumped by a spider, we then decide to help him attack a local facility as it will also help us out at the same time. Right at the front doors, we net ourselves a trophy for returning our 50th blaster shot to sender. Inside the facility we got to meet a few new enemies like this purge trooper, and also got thrown across the room by the security droid while trying to free some Wookiees. We then get a trophy inside this arena style combat section of the facility for hacking a security droid and watching them kill a trooper. Apart from this one death here, we were able to clear out all the enemies in the arena and the facility and get a celebration cutscene with the rebels. This of course rewards us with our next story trophy, and then immediately after that we customized Cal and netted ourselves another trophy. Shortly after that we got another trophy for throwing this droid at an enemy. With everything that we learnt on Kashyyyk, we figured out that deep below the Imperial base on Zepho is another Jedi temple. While we wait for some progress from the rebels, we take the team back to Zepho and locate this Jedi temple. At first, we started off in the Imperial base and eventually made our way deep underground. It was deep underground that we were able to have a reunion with the baddie from the beginning. After a nice little chit chat, we of course got a chance to have a 1v1. I honestly didn't struggle here surprisingly, as we were absolutely whooping her during this battle. However, once she gets to half HP, she yeets us across the room and we enter a cutscene where we get saved by BD1. We also got a face reveal for this Inquisitor, and let me know down below if I'm just down bad. What was rather convenient though was that we ended up at the Jedi Temple after we squeezed through this hole in the wall. This temple was much like the other one where we got a good mix of combat and puzzles. These puzzles however were a lot worse and took a lot more time than the ones earlier. We also did die a bit, but we don't talk about that, let's just show some of the good stuff. After what felt like forever, we do finally complete the temple and are rewarded with another Discord call from our boy. We of course get another story trophy as well after we leave the temple. Unfortunately, on the way back to the ship though, we ran into this mini boss who captured us and sent us to a gulag. After waking up, we escape our pod and go and free BD as well while we're at it. Then, we head into this arena where after some brief introductions and showboating, we got to take on a few waves of enemies that got progressively harder. Starting at lots of smaller enemies, then going to a couple of larger enemies, and then we got a round 2 against our kidnapper. This time however, it was for all the marbles as they say. Somehow we breeze through the entire arena on our first try, and once we do, our crew do a drive-by and pick us up. After a short cutscene, we then carry on with our adventure and head back to Kashyyyk to check on the rebels and see if we can locate this artifact that we need. We were able to bump into a squad that gave us a bit more information, and we then headed off on our own way. In a nutshell, we climb this absolutely massive tree. Then, when we get to the top, Lizzo rocks up in her ship and shoots the platform that we're on. We then go on the best slip and slide ever and end up in this pond after this creature dive bombs the Empire's ship. This of course hurt it quite a bit, and we then spent the next few minutes chasing it down to help it. When it finally lets us help, we remove the piece of ship that has been stuck in its wing and give it a stim, which was a clever move it turns out, as we then become friends and he gave us a lift to the top like Aladdin. However, when we were saying thank you to our new friend, Lizzo decides to put herself on Peter's watch list and gun him down. We now get a chance to avenge our friend and 1v1 her on this tree. The battle wasn't too bad honestly, she did get us once but we came back on our second attempt and absolutely rinsed her. It was a pretty sick fight honestly, but it ends with us cutting her arm off for a trophy. Lizzo then rage quits and we put her in timeout by force pushing her off the edge of the tree. We then head back to the ship and net ourselves a combat trophy on the way for kicking an enemy to death. Back at the ship, we have a catch up with the gang over some food and also break down all of the information we have so far. Everything points towards Dathomir, so we set course. On Dathomir, we done some exploring and it did not take long for us to run into a Night Sister. She isn't too happy with our arrival and gets the boys to jump us. After we make our way a bit further into the planet, we also stumble across this weird old man who just starts yapping. We then head to what we assume is the Jedi Temple, but then we got a rock thrown at us and was sent down below. Down here we run into the Night Sister again and she pops these hanging testicles which drops some goons to fight us. Fortunately, we do get a trophy on one of the encounters for getting our 100th parry. After some more exploring, we got to watch this massive bat thing that we're going to call Bruce take one of the Night Sister's boys for a ride. Shortly after that, we were exploring this cave where we were attacked by Bruce and we enter our next boss fight. Looking back at the footage, I think I struggled with Bruce the most despite getting him on our first try. It is purely because we had no stims left and we were only one hit away. If he didn't fly away when you get him to a quarter HP, we would definitely be goners. Once we leave the cave though, Bruce comes back for round 2 where at first he succeeds in eating us, but after that we race him to the top of the mountain and he isn't too happy as we're about to win, so he decides to cheat and take us for a wild ride. We then clung to this beast as we kept crashing him into the mountains over and over again. There were also some skydiving sections sprinkled in here and there. After crashing Bruce into many mountains, he eventually plummets below and we all crash land into another story trophy. Now it is time to head back to the Jedi Temple, but before we do that, we slay the last legendary beast for a trophy. We then access the temple and after touching the magic wall and meditating, Cal gets a wave of PTSD as we get to relive Order 66 from his perspective. It starts off with us showing off some of our training, and then once we make it to our master's office, the command comes in and our master T'Pau somehow sensed it literally immediately and knew the clones were compromised. We then escape this station and watch as our master cleans house with some of the clones. However, it wasn't good enough, as once we make it to our escape pods, we get ambushed by a larger squad and unfortunately T'Pau's deflection skills were about as good as Deadpool. After we see our master get shot to bits, we then enter the escape pod and go and take this forbidden fleshlight. We were then teleported to this meditation arena where we got to battle our master and have a chat about fault and guilt. Cal doesn't take this too well though, as when we snap out of it, we look down and we have broken our master's fleshlight.
Oh, fuck.
Then, to top it all off, on the way out of the temple, we get ambushed by the creepy old man who basically said, "I told you so." He also strips off for some reason, which might be illegal as I don't think Cal is 18 here. The Night Sister also decides to join the chat, however she has had enough of us and summons a horde to chase us off the planet, which works pretty effectively as we barely make it back to the ship and escape. With no lightsaber, we go back to Froggy and after a quick breakdown we are then tasked with making our own. To do this, we go to another planet called Ilum to get ourselves a Kyber crystal. This involved more brain-rotting puzzles which took us too long to figure out. Eventually though, we do make it to this ice room where our crystal is shining bright. What was quite funny was that as soon as we took it, it broke immediately and we start crying.
Are you crying, bro?
No, bro, I'm good, bro.
Somehow it unlocks more of BD's memories and he starts playing a message from the dude on Discord that we have been listening to. This was some inspirational shit, so inspirational in fact that Cal decided that he was still going to make a lightsaber. But since we have 2 crystals, we go ahead and make a double bladed one, which was one of the most instant semi moments yet. The moment gets better as we also get rewarded with a trophy. We then head back to the ship and get a nice wave of enemies to test our new lightsabers on, and we are bricked at this point. On the way back to the ship, we also got another trophy by accident for killing our 20th enemy with an explosive.
Boom.
At the entrance of the caves there were also a couple more goons which were no problem, but there was also some AT-ATs chilling outside. I used this as a chance to go for another trophy where we have to hit a single enemy with a move from every lightsaber stance. This surprisingly absolutely rinsed it. After we got that trophy, we knew we were approaching the final parts of the game when we go back to the ship. So we took the time to clean up all of the trophies that we could. Staying on Ilum, we were introduced to our first bounty hunters, which are like random mini-boss encounters for late and post-game. After getting rid of them, we then headed into the caves to get our 75th echolocation for a trophy. We then headed back to Pagano to clear up that planet, which started off with freeing this animal and taking him back to the ship. This normally would be a trophy for getting all companions, but we are missing a key one from the final part of the story, so that trophy pops later. A quick mention as well, this puzzle right here was so damn painful. We were here for 15 minutes. We then went for a miscellaneous combat trophy for pulling out one of the frog creature's tongues and cutting it off. Quite brutal, honestly. Also, while we were here, we were attacked by a couple of bounty hunters again. But the good news was we got a trophy for battling each type of bounty hunter. The next planet we wanted to go and complete was Zepho, as it was the biggest map. While here, we got a nice string of trophies back to back. The first one was for defeating an enemy with their own blaster bolt, which was quite savage. We then were able to push 25 enemies total off the map for this trophy. The next trophy that we went for was for kicking this creature after it had punted us, so basically returning the favour. We also got a trophy for locating this crashed ship and looting it. I then spent a couple of hours collecting everything on Zepho, and after a little while we were rewarded with a trophy for getting the max amount of stim canisters. It was now time to head back to Dathomir and complete that planet to get a trophy for getting every chest in the game. While here, we decided to progress the story a bit more again and go back to the Jedi Temple to see if things would go better this time. This time we touched the magic wall and was taken back to fight our master. Things did go entirely differently, and after coming to terms with his death, we were then granted access into the temple. When we get inside the temple, the Night Sister pops up, but this time we actually chat, which ends up with us forming an alliance. Turns out that the shirtless old man is a bad dude, who would have guessed it, and has been manipulating the Night Sister, so we go to take him down.
Better scramble like an egg before you get folded like an omelet, nigga. Hey.
After we tried reasoning with him, he decided to attack us and now starts his boss battle. He honestly isn't too bad, as his attacks are quite predictable. However, something worth mentioning is that halfway through the fight we get a cutscene where he does get the best of us and we are saved by the Night Sister. We then get right back up and start beating the homeless dude up again. This second phase was also a bit of a breeze honestly, and we quickly got his health to 0, triggering our next cutscene. If you were expecting a Jedi execution, then I'm sorry. Our new friend decides to bury him alive in concrete. She then comes with us to explore the temple and retrieve the artifact that we were after. Now that she realises that we are not bad people, she decides to help us locate the holocron before the Empire does. And when she joins the team, we get the full house trophy for having every ally in the game. We did struggle on the way back to the ship here, as this sent us right back to the bottom of the map. But when we do get back to the ship, we introduce our new friend to the crew and they aren't too happy at first. We now have everything we need to go and retrieve the holocron, but before we do that, let's clean up the rest of the trophies for a platinum pop at the end of the story. As we have collected everything, we went back to our vivarium to check on our seeds and get a trophy since they were all fully grown. We also quickly unlocked every skill in the game for another trophy. There was a trophy for using one of our new abilities called Precision Invade 100 times, so we just kept doing it over and over again on these two dudes here. Eventually though, we do pop the can't touch this trophy. We then went to this spot and blocked up a few of the enemies here to get a trophy for killing 3 or more enemies with 1 lightsaber throw. As there was a lot of enemies that we can one-shot, we also farmed 25 kills on enemies hit with empowered slows. With the only things left being story and data entries from the final area of the game, we then went back to where it all began. Upon interacting with the artifact, we get a trophy but also get sent to the Shadow Realm and have a chat with this weird looking dude. When we come back to the real world in the temple, the forbidden Rubik's Cube is floating in the middle. However, the moment is ruined by the baddie Inquisitor and we then of course have to fight her. I thought the fight was going really well, however after she is hit a few times we then enter this cutscene where the fight is cut short. We manage to disarm her, but when we pick up her lightsaber, Cal has an aneurysm. He has an ability where he can see memories tied to an item, and while he is doing whatever this is, Triller takes the cube and escapes. With that savage defeat, we head back to the crew and come up with a plan. Froggy then knights us with a red lightsaber, which is a bit odd. Then, using the memories that we witnessed and Froggy's past, we were able to locate their hidden base with an educated guess. I also forgot to mention that the baddie we had been fighting the whole time was Froggy's apprentice in the Order way back when. Anyway, with the gang all gassed up and ready to go, we head to the planet where we were able to locate the base deep underwater. This base was of course filled with enemies and lots of back-to-back combat sections. We got to fight basically every enemy we've encountered so far throughout the game as we make our way through the base. Froggy also popped off for a moment honestly. Eventually though, we make it to the main room and as we would expect, Triller jumps us out of nowhere and we start the final fight of the game. At this point we were flying through fights fairly easy, but we also had way too many stims. We finished the fight by throwing this droid at her, hitting her with the double bonk and then slapping her around the face. Cal then steals the holocron back and as we're about to execute her, Froggy turns up and tries to convince Driller to rejoin the good side. It was all for nothing though, as in one huge twist, Darth Vader rocks up for some reason and endgames Triller in front of us. He also yeets Froggy into the abyss, so rest in pepperoni. Cal isn't stupid enough as when it's our turn to get our cheeks clapped, we distract him by pulling this object and get thrown across the room. Knowing exactly what will happen if we stay, we make the logical move and try running away. What was good though was when we got to the lift, we got a trophy for all data entries after BD takes a photo of Darth Vader. For some reason though, no trophies for all of BD's logs or maps, even though we were 100% on every planet. At this point I was getting a little bit concerned. Anyway, Darth Vader chased us across the base, which of course was quite fun. He does corner us in this corridor and after quickly getting whooped, we were saved by Froggy as she somehow survived and there is a pretty epic fight but she does lose. She also taps into the dark side for a moment to hold him off, but Cal was one step ahead and broke the window to flood the place and quickly escape. When the gang make it back to the ship, we all sit and have a chat about what to do next and Cal decides to destroy the Rubik's Cube. Yeah, that's right, all of that for nothing apart from a trophy. I then decided to do some research into what I was missing to pop those 2 remaining trophies as all of my tracking was at 100%. Turns out that I forgot to pick up this entry here on Bogano which pops the first trophy. Then for the Holomaps trophy, we spent 30 minutes running around until we found this tiny space right here, which thankfully was the last thing I needed to pop the Holomaps completion trophy. Then right after that we popped the Great Platinum trophy. Overall, this is genuinely an incredible game. The story is just amazing and I'm so excited to carry on with Cal's journey in Jedi Survivor. I will admit, the collectibles and the map system became a headache in the end figuring out what you need, especially with the tracking being at 100% for whatever reason. However, it doesn't take away from how good the game genuinely is. If you haven't played this yet, just go play it, honestly. Be sure to leave a like and comment below what games you want to see. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more Platinum content as we have Star Wars Outlaws and Jedi Survivor lined up. And I will catch you in the next one.
我很喜欢冰淇淋。